Main Street Media, Utah. This is Talk with Jon here on KMMU, Main Street Media, Utah. Look forward to being with you for the remainder of the next 2 hours. I will be on until about 6 o'clock. I'll be having a guest join me, a mysterious guest, maybe not so mysterious, but a guest joining me at roughly 5 o'clock today. So, in about somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 minutes. And we will be talking about the Republican Party, the state of the Utah Republican Party, and just his thoughts on a few of the machinations that are happening right now and taking place. Excuse me, I had to cough. And I didn't want to be so rude as to have you hear it and deal with it. So let's get to the show opening, as it were. Um, I'm your host, Jon, and looking forward to being with you. Today's date is August 27th, Tuesday, August 27th, 2024, and I will be here with you for the remainder of the next 2 hours. Looking forward to it. Um, I'm going to cover a bunch of stories, but first, before we get to any of those, I want to give out my show prayer and show mantra. Now, when it comes to doing the show, I try to bring the best of me that there is to the show. So I hope my show is a gift back to my forefathers, the founding fathers, and may it be an acceptable token to our Father above. Then the show mantra: where there is liberty, there is the Spirit of Christ. Where the Spirit of Christ is, there will be liberty. And the greater the Spirit of Christ, the greater liberty will be. So, looking forward to chatting with you folks. Now, I did put out on Twitter that I would be taking phone calls. I apologize. I did not realize that our call screener was and producer was not going to be with me today. Yeah, so it is going to be me rolling solo, and when I roll solo, unfortunately, I can't take any phone calls. But if you make some comments in YouTube, I know that it gets to me. I'm not sure that Twitter does get to me in real time comments. So, but I do have in the chat. I've got it open. So if anybody comments, hopefully I see what they're saying and see what they're talking about. And if I remember correctly, it's pretty much on YouTube. For some reason, I do think Rumble might come over as well, but for some reason, I don't think Twitter comes over into the feed. So, looking forward to being with you, like I said, and chatting. So let's get to some stories. We're going to be covering Utah issues, so I'm going to be going with a bunch of the national issues to begin with, and national stories. Now, there are a bunch of them out there floating around. So we'll see how many we can cover. So Black Chicagoans eviscerate Democrats for putting illegals before citizens. It's all by design. It's deliberate. During a Democrat National Convention in Chicago last week, Numbers USA interviewed local residents about how the Democrat Party prioritizes illegals over citizens. Now, what I want to do, let's see if I can get this video. Oh,
Does the Democratic platform?
It's a longer video, so I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I want to get the gist of it. I want you folks to be able to get the gist of it.
To satisfy your needs as far as what you'd like to see with our immigration policy.
What platform is that?
That's when I found out that it was Kamala Harris that opened the borders up in California.
I'm going to put this at the feet of the Democratic Party.
The Democratic Party, has an agenda behind bringing immigrants over.
I'm Andre Barnes with Numbers USA in Chicago during the DNC. We're here to hear the stories from the people who are impacted by the immigrants being bused into their neighborhoods. And what we want to do is tell the stories of the people that have been affected. When you hear people say that we should be softer on border security, what do you have to say about that?
We should be softer?
When they say that we should be welcoming to people that are coming in illegally and getting all these benefits. What do you have to say to that?
Well, first of all, the people coming here illegally, so that's a crime. We need to be harder on immigration, not softer.
Can you tell me about your neighborhood and what you've seen living here in Chicago?
It's just been a disaster. They started off putting the immigrants over in the police station. And as they started to move them out of the police station, they stealthily started to put them in our neighborhoods. Well, the neighborhood didn't want them. The residents, the citizens, we pushed back, but the deal was already done. And so they were bringing in a lot of military-age men into the community. I mean, we're not blind, we're not stupid, we're not obtuse. We know what's going on. But unfortunately, the people who run this city, they don't care what the people think. So they started putting them into quiet residential neighborhoods like Washington Park, middle-class black neighborhood. We're still pushing back. We don't want them here. The crime rate has gone up since they've been here. That's a fact. Nobody wants to talk about it, but we live it every day.
What policies would you like to see in place that would limit the amount of people that are there?
Well, listen, there are policies on the book in Congress already. They need to enforce the laws that are already on the books. These people are here illegally. Again, they're not seeking asylum. If they were seeking asylum, they would have gone to the first country that would have granted them asylum, which would have been Mexico. What I would like to see them do, if they're here illegally, they need to go back to their country of origin, and that's immediately. We have no allegiance to these folks, okay? We don't care where they're from.
Does the Democratic platform seem to satisfy your needs as far as what you'd like to see with our immigration policy?
What platform is that? They don't seem to have a platform. They seem to have open borders. Everybody can come here. Listen, people live in their homes. You have a home or you have an apartment. Do you have a front door on your home?
Yes, I do.
Do you have a back door?
Yes, I do.
Are they locked?
They're locked.
Are you locking because you're racist?
No.
You're locking because?
I'm protecting my 4
You're
children
protecting-
that I have at home.
Exactly. Same.
You know, I'm going to kind of stop it there. I think you get the gist. And so what I'm hoping to see and what I'm hoping to hear is that Americans are coming together and understanding, you know what you're seeing and what you're feeling and what you're thinking with immigration is we've got people coming in, they're getting more money from the government, more assistance from the government than you are. The individual citizen that has been paying taxes for years. I would say that is the number one message that the Democrat mainstream media is teaching. Hello, Truck Driver Ray. Good to have you with me. Unfortunately, we don't have call-ins. I don't know if you heard to begin with. I was hoping that we were going to be able to take call-ins. My producer is not here. So, Truck Driver Ray, feel free to pop in with some comments. I wish I could have taken your phone call. Would have loved to have chat with you. But go ahead. I'm going to be covering a number of issues, and just glad to have you there. And feel free to make a comment or two along the way, and we can get to you. So this is becoming, back to immigration, it's becoming a left, right, doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you are on. The question is immigration helping you or hurting you? So I'm gonna this conversation was with someone that I had here in Utah, who represents a non-governmental organization that in general does a lot of good work, and I think is a very, very good man, God-fearing man. And he and I had a conversation, I want to say 15, maybe 20 years ago, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 years ago, that about immigration. And I was against immigration, or at least illegal immigration, allowing illegal immigrants. And at the time, and he was for it. He was promoting it. He was working for an organization that was promoting it. It was like, you don't understand, John. It's just like a speeding ticket. It's like a misdemeanor. Somebody gets a speeding ticket, it's not a big deal. And I looked at him and I said, "Do you realize what happens if you don't?" It's a misdemeanor. He's like, "It's a misdemeanor. If even that, it's like a speeding ticket." And I said, "Do you realize what happens if you keep on speeding? Do you realize what happens if you speed over and over every day? Do you realize what happens if you don't pay that speeding ticket? If you don't follow the law and take care of that?" I said, eventually, one of two things are going to happen. If you keep on speeding, eventually, you're going to get so many tickets that your driver's license is going to be suspended and you're not going to be able to drive. And then if you continue to drive and you continue to speed, eventually you're going to be pulled over and your car is going to be impounded. And eventually you might even be able to be put in jail if you do it often enough and frequent enough. And I said, if you don't pay those fines, I guarantee you there will be a warrant issued for you. And if the cops pull you over, you will be put in jail until those fines, those fees are paid. How do I know? Because I had someone in my world that was facing that a number of years ago. So that very scenario, they'd forgotten that they had a traffic ticket, forgot to pay it and take care of it, and uh, fortunately, we beat the law and got it taken care of. But bottom line is, had that person been caught, they would have gone to jail. So, what you need to be aware of, folks, is that if you immigration is an everybody problem. It's not just a right problem, it's not a left problem, it's an all American problem. And even back then, I had someone, I don't know, 20 years ago, I had an illegal immigrant that had pretty much never driven before. They drove their car, they went for a test drive. They drove someone else's car right into my car, right into the side of my car, and took out my back door. To get it fixed was going to cost me somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think it was like $800. I got an estimate done, and I went to the guy and I said, "Listen," I actually had someone who spoke Spanish, brought someone who spoke Spanish so I could communicate with him, and said, "Listen, hey, I'm glad you want to be here in the United States. I'm glad that you want to be here legally, but the bottom line is, um, you hit my car, you need to take care of it." Well, I got a couple $100 out of the guy and he bounced, disappeared. Who knows where he went to? And I followed up with the cops, and the cops were like, "Hey, there's nothing we can do about it." But the bottom line is, we already, we arrested him. We gave him a citation. If he doesn't show up and take care of it, then we will, we're gonna get, he's gonna get a fine, and the fine's gonna be taken care of with the court. And I'm like, where does that money for the fine go? Oh, to the court, not to me, not to taking care of my car. Nope, nope, nope. Sorry, you come second. And I was like, that just doesn't seem right. So that way back then was a problem. The immigration issue now is we have them coming across, and as that lady said, these are military age men. They look military, they act military, and they are raping and pillaging and doing nefarious things. Some of them that are really going to be bad actors. Okay, I said this back on right after October 7th. The thing that terrified me the most about October 7th was the fact that if it happens here in the United States, it's going to be much worse. We're not going to have, they're already in the country. At least Israel has some separation between the nefarious actors, the ones that would do harm. And it kind of depends on what side of the issue you might be on that one. But there's somewhat separation. It's pretty obvious. Someone from the Gaza Strip, if they come into Israel, are they going to be arrested? Probably not. But someone from Israel goes into Gaza, there's signs leading into it. I have not been there myself, but I definitely have many friends that have gone. And they have signs that say, if you're an Israeli citizen beyond this point, we can't guarantee your safety. What's going to happen here in the United States is we're going to have a bunch of small cells all over the United States that will pop up. And I think they're trying to gin something up, saying that with Iran, saying the United States government saying that Iran is looking to assassinate Donald Trump. Was it Iran that let that shooter be up on the roof for over 20 minutes without doing anything? Was it Iran that told the Secret Service to not have someone up on that rooftop to make sure that it was cleared, and not just cleared, remain cleared, to make sure that someone didn't get up there and take a shot? Was it Iran that allowed the shooter to have a rangefinder? Was it Iran that made sure that the comms between the local authorities and the Secret Service were not functioning, were not happening? It was released in the news just over the last couple of days that the local PD, the local police, local law enforcement had radios set aside the day before the event for the Secret Service. Here's another thing. Michael Letts has been on our show. Michael Letts of Invest USA has come on and said, John, I'll even tell you what else should have happened. Comms go down. Comms don't happen great. What should have happened is someone from the police force should have been in the command central where the Secret Service was. And as soon as they heard man with a gun, that should have been over the airwaves to the Secret Service. The Secret Service should have rushed the stage and gone at Donald Trump before a shot was even fired. There were a lot of breakdowns, and I've only mentioned just the first few. A lot of breakdowns on that day. Did Iran control that? Nope. That was the Secret Service. That was internal. Those mistakes were made by the great. I've got to fly. Wonderful. Those mistakes were made by the local authorities here in the United States, and guess what? Iran had nothing to do with that. So, illegal immigrants floating around, we got some problems. We have some really big problems that we may be facing here very soon. Let me plug in my computer to make sure that I keep power to it and it doesn't go out because it's on its way. Let's see. Ray's made a couple comments real quickly. Arab-Israeli hostage Farhana al-Qadr. He's 52, a husband of two, wife and father. Al-Waqidi. Why would Hamas kidnap an Arab and the Jews risk their lives to rescue him? Real quickly to cover that. So it was in the news that the Israelis went in and got a Muslim, grabbed a Muslim from the grabbed him out and saved him. I don't know how many times that would have happened with the other way around, that the Hamas would have gone in and saved some Jews and brought them out. Probably wouldn't happen. So let's get on to the next. So my concern is we're going to have these illegal immigrants that a number of them are, according to Michael Letts, are Chinese special forces of other groups, military-age men from Iran and the Middle East, and they're planning something here. So bottom line, we got to get that taken care of. Senator Tom Cotton on ABC this week talked about Trump derangement syndrome. Let's see if we can get this to play
in a second. But first, there are reports there's obviously a bit of a momentum change here. You see it in the polls. You see it in the money flowing in to the Harris campaign. And there was a report in Politico that Trump now knows that he has to change things up or that he could lose. You talk to him. I mean, what's your sense? Do you need a change in direction?
Well, President Trump and his campaign has known all along, and they've said all along, that this race is going to be a close race.
Actually, he said it would be a landslide, just to be clear. He said he was going to win in a landslide.
But look, we know the race will probably come down to a few 100,000 votes in a few states. President Trump has been campaigning hard and vigorously now for months. Obviously, that's going to increase in its pace as we get closer to the election. And President Trump is going to draw a sharp contrast with Kamala Harris, who has supported things like decriminalizing illegal immigration or giving taxpayer-funded health insurance to illegal aliens or taking away health insurance on the job for 170 million Americans, banning gas cars, confiscating firearms. These are all
what do you mean taking away health insurance? What are you talking about?
She said when she ran for president that she wants to eliminate private health insurance on the job for 170 million Americans, John.
Yeah, I mean that is not her position now.
How do you know that's not her position? How do you know that's not her position?
I mean, she says she no longer supports Medicare for all.
She has not said that. Maybe anonymous aides on a Friday night have said that, but the last thing.
I'm going to get to that.
So we have ABC, we have their political anchor. So the Democrat mainstream media pops their ugly head, maybe not so ugly, but comes out and says, starts speaking for the Harris campaign. That's what we see from the Democrat mainstream media. That's a constant topic. We will see it. In fact, there's I've even got some more that we will be getting to. Let's see if I can play another one in this. I believe it's from the same interview. John Carl gets humiliated by Tom Cotton after denying Kamala Harris is a radical leftist. So Tom Cotton speaking up and saying what's true. Let's go to this.
And President Trump is going to draw a sharp contrast with Kamala Harris, who has supported things like decriminalizing illegal immigration or giving taxpayer-funded health insurance to illegal aliens or taking away health insurance on the job for 170 million Americans, banning gas cars, confiscating firearms. These are all
what do you mean taking away health insurance? What are you talking about?
She said when she ran for president that she wants to eliminate private health insurance on the job for 170 million Americans, John.
Yeah, I mean that is not her position now.
How do you know that's not her position?
Well, I don't know that's his position, her position.
It's not her position.
I mean, she says she no longer supports Medicare for all.
She has not said that. Maybe anonymous aides on a Friday night have said her positions, John. The American people are totally justified to conclude that Kamala Harris
making an effort to move to the middle.
I did hear what you said to Senator Sanders.
Okay,
so with Bernie Sanders, she is not taking.
Let's back this up.
But the last thing that she said,
this was not a radical convention. I mean, she as you heard me go through with Bernie Sanders, she is not taking positions on the far left of her party. She's clearly making an effort to move to the middle.
I did hear what you said to Senator Sanders, and I thought it was clear that he's very disappointed that she's taking these efforts not to change her positions, but to hide her positions, John. The American people are totally justified to conclude that Kamala Harris is a dangerous San Francisco liberal based on what she campaigned on the last time she ran for president and what this administration has done the last 4 years. Again, you would have thought watching the Democrat.
So let's be clear. The Democrat mainstream media that we're seeing here is completely backing Kamala Harris, saying that she's moving to the center. She's not said I'm moving to the center. She's never come out and said I'm moving to the center, and I denounce the positions that I had, or I've modified my positions. I've come to realize I have a little bit more wisdom on other policies. She said nothing of the sort. As Senator Tom Cotton points out, what she's doing is she's really hiding her position. Something tells me you don't go from 30 years of positions. She's had these positions for 3.5 years of the Biden administration. Actually, we're we're somewhere in the neighborhood of probably almost 3 3/4 of the administration, but actually it's closer to 3.5. So we'll call it 3.5. She's had these positions, and in the last 5 seconds, she changes her positions to be more moderate. She's just trying to get elected, folks. She'll go back to the way she always has been. In fact, and then she's gonna tell us, "Well, I've always been this way." Kind of the same story as the I believe it's the scorpion and the fox. The scorpion hops on the fox and to cross the river, and the scorpion goes from its just let me be on your tail, and as they go across the river, keeps getting deeper. Then he goes up. I'm getting wet now. Can I come up a little further? It gets on its hindquarters, then gets on its shoulders, and then gets on its head, and then stings it. And the fox is like, "We're gonna wind up dying." And the scorpion says, "I've always been a scorpion." Bottom line is, she's always been a scorpion. She's going to sting you the same way. And you're a fool if you're voting for her. And that's the problem. I need to do a better job of convincing the people that I know that may have interests in voting for Kamala Harris. That woman has always been the way she is. She wants to take away your guns. She wants to have after birth abortions. She wants to take away your she wants to send us all to Medicaid. All these socialist positions, she's not going to go away from them. She'll double down should she be made the president. Let's continue.
Mentioned last week that the Democrats are not in office, that they're not in power, that they're campaigning against an incumbent Republican, when in reality, she's been part of the failures of the Biden-Harris administration for 4 years. And when she campaigned for president in her own right, she did in fact promise things like decriminalizing illegal immigration and taking away health insurance.
But that's his position she's clearly changed on, and she said she has changed. Yes,
no,
she has.
No, she's not. John, she has not said that.
As you see, the Democrat mainstream media is totally in the pocket of Kamala Harris, stumping for her. She hasn't come out and said that she disagrees with that. There's policies that have been put out for that she's going to build the wall. Every policy that Donald Trump has that's good, she's going for it. Why don't we just have Donald Trump? Because at least we know he'll do it, or at least attempt to do it. Okay, so folks, so for 5 minutes after Donald Trump was at the Donald Trump assassination attempt, they were like, "Hey, we need to dial down our rhetoric." Now we have New Jersey Democrat Senator Cory Booker boasting on CNN, "We can kill the MAGA strain of the Republican Party." Bottom line is, that's scary. That's scary. I still think they're trying to ramp things up.
And what I know this election can do is finally kill that strain of the Republican Party in a way that I think helps the pragmatic Republicans come back. And
So what is a pragmatic Republican? Oh, I'm going to guess it's probably the eye patch McCain from Texas. My guess is that the pragmatic Republican is compromising Mitch McConnell, is good old John Curtis, former Democrat mayor of Provo, who for like, as soon as I found out maybe I need to run for, I want to run for Congress. I know the Republican can't win this area, so let me change my stripes. Yeah. But I must admit, even John Curtis is not as bad as Rhino Romney. Yeah, we've got a lot of them. We got a lot of them that we got to get rid of. And the bottom line is, when you're using the terms kill maybe you ought to dial down that rhetoric a little bit on the left, because we haven't seen a gunshot happen from the right, have we? No, but we've definitely seen it from the left. All right, let's go on to the next story. This is something that I just want to briefly touch on. President Trump's in a private meeting to discuss vaccines and medical freedom. The Gateway pundit reported on a recent private meeting between President Trump and 5 advocates for medical freedom and vaccines. They said it was a successful meeting. The following is a takeaway from the meeting with President Trump's response. He said, "I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, I heard you, and tell your people I hear them." President Trump agreed that with the group that had to say. The women present shared the following: "We were honored to be personally invited to meet with President Trump, where we had the unique opportunity to discuss crucial medical freedom issues like vaccination choice for children, schools, and employment, access to treatment and options, and why they are important to Americans. President Trump is an adamant no vaccine mandates individual." That's one thing that was true with him, even though I also think it's very helpful that he brought on RFK. I think that signifies that we've got a real chance for this. Tim Walz. So not only is Kamala Harris crazy town, so is Tim Walz. Tim Walz's China obsession is worse than you think. Vice President hopeful Tim Walz has a variety of troubling obsessions, but none so disturbing as his deep and abiding affection for communist China. Long before the Democrat Minnesota governor was pushing for tampons in boys' bathrooms or running the Gay-Straight Alliance for teenagers, he was waxing poetic about the People's Republic of China as a nation where everybody shares. That was reported by the Washington Free Beacon. Walz allegedly told this and other disturbing lies to students at the Nebraska public school where he taught social studies in November 1991. The lesson was on Chinese Communist Party system of government that has caused mass starvation, poverty, death, including forced abortions, demanded by its one-child policy, which was the law of the land as recently as 2016. And notice how they have their cratering birth rate. They have now changed that. They're almost making a mandatory 3 children policy. So they're allowing 3 children. Still, Walz was in love with the traditional government and its ability to level the playing field, disregarding the fact that it did so by making everyone equally miserable, as communists inevitably, as communism inevitably does wherever it's tried. So, bottom line is, he is a liar. He is a communist. The man honeymooned. He was married on the date of Tiananmen Square, the memorandum in memory, anniversary date of Tiananmen Square, and then he honeymooned in China. So he'd have something, he chose that date because it'd be memorable. Sounds pretty scary to me. Folks, I sure hope we don't pick that deal. Oh, that's crazy. All right. Well,
are you still interested in a solar-powered generator?
Dang it, I wanted to get this to play ahead of time, but here we go. More ads. Gotta love it.
They had a guy yelling.
Okay, so kind of the headline on this: leftist Jon Stewart calls out Bill Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and other Democrat elites for the hypocrisy that the DNC labels Bill Clinton a sexual predator. Well, it's about time. And welcome to finally figuring that out, Jon. Jon Stewart finally wants to admit that truth. I don't know.
They had a guy yelling, "Screw the billionaires," followed immediately by a very happy billionaire. It's all okay if it's our billionaire. I don't like billionaires, but he's all right. They had guys making fun of people for going to Yale, and a bunch of people who went to Yale. The Democrats had people who prosecuted sexual predators.
Hillary Clinton being one of those.
And
so they got a picture of Kamala Harris, and then Bill Clinton pops up. Picture of Bill Clinton out there.
there goes that booking.
Well, Bill Clinton has Parkinson's and was having trouble speak in front of the DNC committee, and something tells me the likelihood of him being booked before that statement was pretty unlikely, John, and I'm pretty sure that it's about the same likelihood as now. All right, let's go to the next topic. I really want to hit this one. So RFK Jr. Has been asked to be part of the transition team. Met with Donald Trump, and the speech. RFK Jr. So one of the reasons why I think we've got a chance for Trump to make sure that we still have the ability to have our medical freedom with Trump is he's bringing on RFK Jr. And RFK Jr. has been doing straight fire in his opening and his suspending his campaign address or statement. There's some brilliance that's going on then. He's suspending his campaign. He said he's going to have his name, if I understand correctly, he's going to have his name taken off the ballots in the battleground states, and he'll have his name taken off there. But in the Democrat states, he's still going to leave his name on. Well, that could even put some of those states possibly in play for Donald Trump. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 2 weeks. We haven't seen a lot of polls, or at least I haven't seen any polls released on where the numbers are for Kamala Harris and where the numbers are for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump after the Democrat convention, as well as after Robert Kennedy Jr. came out and said that he is going to back Donald Trump. Excuse me. So, with that having happened, I think there's a very good chance that bump has been significantly mitigated. We'll see. And I kind of think if there had been a significant bump after the DNC convention, we would have heard some numbers come out already. We really didn't have any numbers. Now, I must admit, after the Republican National Convention by Tuesday, I hadn't heard any numbers either. But all those numbers were positive for Donald Trump. Things have a tendency when it's for the Democrats to come out pretty darn quickly. We haven't heard anything. But I do want to get into, there was Tucker Carlson interviewed RFK Jr. On X, and they had a very long interview, but they did touch on the CIA. And I want to play this and I'm going to start and stop it because I think this is a very significant conversation. There's a lot going on here, and I want to get that, and I'll make some comments as this plays.
So the CIA, I mean, a lot of roads lead back, unfortunately, to our most powerful intelligence agency. If you were asked, would you run it? Would you become CIA director if you were asked?
I would never get, yes, I would, but I would never get Senate confirmation. As you know, the intelligence agency are protected by very, very powerful committees in the Senate and in the House that are all read into the project. And the people who serve on those committees are people who would, they would not, they're safeguarding that directorship. And I would be very, very dangerous for those.
Why would Robert F. Kennedy be very dangerous for those committees and those individuals?
Committee. So I don't think that.
And yet, in his, in your joint appearance on Friday, President Trump introduced you by saying that he plans to, if elected, establish a commission to declassify the remaining documents around your uncle's murder in 1963.
Yeah.
And I think everyone at this point knows the truth, which is the CIA is implicated in that. Those documents protect CIA, maybe among others.
Well, whether they do or not, I mean, it's odd that they've not allowed them to be released. Because
what could possibly be the explanation?
More than 60 years after my uncle's death, almost 65 years, 62 years after his death. And there's none of the people who were implicated in that crime are alive now.
Yes.
And the last ones have died off in the last year or two. And so it clearly is to protect the institution.
Yes.
And that's wrong. It's just wrong. And it's wrong for a Democrat and it's wrong for Republicans.
It's just interesting, though, that a bipartisan list of presidents, these 6 decades, have kept those files classified.
Well, you and I have both. I was astonished that Trump didn't declassify them because he promised to during the campaign.
That was Mike Pompeo who did that.
Yeah, and that I talked to President Trump for the first time about that this week. And
what did he say?
He said that Mike Pompeo begged him to. And I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here.
No,
I think he told the same thing to you.
That's
right?
true.
But he said Mike Pompeo called him and said this would be a catastrophe to release these. You need to not do it.
So why would it be a catastrophe to do it? Why would it be a catastrophe to release the truth? Why would it be a catastrophe for that information to be shared with the American public finally? My guess in that report is not low. There was probably still sticks to the narrative of Lee Harvey Oswald being the lone gunman. I don't think that narrative changes a whole bunch. But what does it imply? What does it give away? Well, we know George Herbert Walker Bush was involved in the information at the time. We have Johnson. It could implicate not only the CIA, it would implicate the FBI, it would implicate the presidency. What information is shared in that they have not been allowed, that they have not given it out? And that Mike Pompeo, I'm going to see if I can find the verbiage that they used real quickly in regards to Mike Pompeo. And I might even back it up. So Pompeo begged, so that this was the key phrase, Pompeo begged Trump not to release the files, warning that it would be a catastrophe. Why would it be a catastrophe? Could it be that it would show that no one should trust the CIA? That no one should trust our quote-unquote intelligence agencies? I think that's a very good case. All right, I'm going to let this continue to play.
And, I want to say again, I think Mike Pompeo is a criminal. So that's my view. He's threatened to sue me for saying that, but I hope he will, because it's true. But that.
Okay, so with Tucker saying that, why would Tucker say that? I hope you sue me so I can prove it? Because in a fair trial, you're able to do discovery and you're able to bring evidence to prove yourself. Now, I don't know that he'd get a fair trial. He'd probably get an Alex Jones trial. He'd probably get a Donald Trump trial where you're not allowed to bring your own evidence. You won't be able to bring your own. They would make it so you wouldn't be able to bring your own evidence. You wouldn't be able to bring experts on your behalf. Most likely that's the case, and that's I'm pretty sure that's what would happen. Let's continue.
That kind of tells the whole story right there, right? The CIA is.
Well, yeah.
So I'm going to back that up just a smidgen.
He's threatened to sue me for saying that, but I hope he will not do it. And then, I want to say again, I think Mike Pompeo is a criminal, so that's my view. He's threatened to sue me for saying that, but I hope he will because it's true. But that kind of tells the whole story right there, right? The CIA is. Well, yeah. Why would the CIA be trying to keep these files classified if they had nothing to do with the murder? I don't really get that.
Yeah, but
Hopefully. So I'm sending a quick text. Give me just a moment, folks. I'm doing a little producing because I don't have a producer. Okay. All right. So let's go to the next. So I'm gonna kind of bottom line this. JFK and Donald Trump better never be in the same vehicle. They better not be in the same plane. I'm concerned about them even being at the same venue. And if they're going to the same venue, one needs to be driven from the south and the other one needs to be driven in from the north. Because the bottom line is, these are two individuals that I think that the powers that be want to take them out. Cannot have the truth. And there's too much of a chance that they would release that information. So here's another piece of information. This has come out in the news just recently. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg finally admitted in an effort to cover himself that the Biden-Harris regime put relentless pressure on him to censor truthful and critical information. In a letter addressed to House Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, Zuckerberg openly admitted that Meta, and this is another thing that ticks the heck out of me, with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, well, there's not enough evidence that the federal government is interfering with these tech giants. Well, here's a piece of evidence, Supreme Court. Bottom line is, we should have made sure that we did a better job of proving our case. But I also noticed that Zuckerberg held off in making sure that information was out and about. So Zuckerberg openly admitted that Meta, the parent company of Facebook, was subject to relentless pressure by the Biden administration to censor content related to COVID-19, as well as the infamous Hunter Biden laptop. Zuckerberg also addressed the financial contributions he made through Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, better known as Zuckerbucks, during the 2020 election cycle. While he insists these contributions supported electronical infrastructure in a nonpartisan manner, they have almost exclusively benefited Democrats. And then also they kept the information away that happened with it. The truthful information, like Dr. McCullough, Dr. Malone, kept back truthful information. Jen Psaki forced to face harsh reality as Don Lemon drops a truth bomb. No one knows Kamala Harris and black voters side with Trump. Okay, let's see if we can get this one to play as well. Crap. We've got another
best and worst dinner for your waistline. Sweet potato.
Awesome.
Try to find the perfect
got another
sweet
ad. Hopefully we don't have another one.
Was there anything? What did they think about Harris? Did they? Was there anything? What did they think about Harris? Did they have anything to say about her?
They did have to listen. It depends on where you are. We went to a number of different battleground states: Pennsylvania, Ohio. We were in Michigan, Indiana. On our way, obviously, Illinois. On our way to Chicago, and it sort of depended on where you were. Pennsylvania, as well, I shouldn't say Pennsylvania. I should say Philadelphia was a bit more liberal, and the answers to the questions about her and him were quite different. But for the most part, in Pittsburgh or in the Jersey Shore and in Atlantic City, in Ohio especially, many people did not know who she was, right? They weren't familiar with her. So I think she has to reintroduce herself to the public. But for him, I think that they thought that he's better for the economy. And that, again, that he gave them, that he brought money into the community, and that he was on Black people's side.
So we have a bunch of the, hold on for a second. My guest went away. So I'm going to text him. Please forgive me, folks. I'm producing the show because I don't have a producer right now. Join me when you're, oh, there he is. Okay. All right. So to my guest, I'll be bringing you on in just a minute. In fact, I've got one more story that I want to cover, and so let me just finish this thought on Jen Psaki, that little clip with Don Lemon.
Did you know there is a natural way to restore prostate health
Okay.
that only 3% of the population even knows about? Scientists at
There we go. I'm not trying to replay it, folks.
Groundbreaking new research is overturning everything we thought we knew about cognitive decline. MRI scans have uncovered the real root cause of memory loss, and it's not.
Gotta love it.
Story today from the Gateway.
Gotta love it when I am running this thing all the way on my own. So Jen Psaki now has the truth revealed by Don Lemon. There's a lot of black voters that are siding with Trump. It's all over the place. We've got a bunch of black people, especially black men, that are leaving the Democrat plantation. And I think there's a good chance, unless here's the question. Can the Republicans overcome the nefarious actions of the Democrat Party? I don't know. All right. So I've brought my guest up. So as soon as, well, he stepped away from his computer. So as soon as he gets back, I'll bring him up. And then there he is. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Chad. Good to have you join me, Chad Saunders. Thank you so much for joining me today. I don't know if you want to comment on that last story. Go ahead.
First of all, did you know that there's new ways to improve men's prostate health?
I can't
wait. That was my number one takeaway from your story. That, and that there's ways to help with cognitive decline of memory loss. And so, yeah, I think those are important issues for us to be discussing today.
Well, definitely Biden and Kamala Harris probably want to have that.
No.
And I can do, I don't want cognitive decline, so I might want that. Other issue.
I would like to comment on the real story that, it's interesting. Jen Psaki has not had a good 24, 48 hours, because the Zuckerberg story that you were talking about, she was still the press secretary when all that was going on. And she had to, she did a lot of the spin that they had on that. So yeah, she was, it's not, that Zuckerberg thing, that's a big deal. That's
been memory hold. I noticed that that CNN didn't go to Jen Psaki and say, "Hey, Jen, since you're you happen to have been the press secretary for Biden, so tell us, what do you know about this story?" I noticed that CNN didn't go and do that.
Yeah, it's it's very interesting what we're seeing, but it just reaffirms why we need to stay vigilant, and that we need to stay aware of what's going on, and don't always take the bait.
Well, I want everyone to take the bait that I lay out. The bottom line is I deliver nothing but pure, honest gold truth, right?
Exactly. We all think we do. Yeah, sure.
Well, no, wait a minute. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, you and I may think we do. I will even, Chad, I'll even give it to you that you think you're delivering the truth. I know that I think I'm delivering the truth, and I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong. There are times that I'm wrong.
And if
But
you talk
Jen
to
Psaki, Don
no,
Lemon,
that's there's a difference. You and I we may not have all the facts, or the facts that we have presented to us may not be whole or complete. So sometimes we get it wrong. No, what she did as press secretary and a lot of what Don Lemon does as a so-called journalist is premeditated. And there's a big difference between being premeditated and just not having everything laid out in front of you ahead of time. There's a big difference with that.
I would concur with that. There's one more story that I do want to cover with the audience, because I think
I'll go with whatever you want to go with. I'm happy to talk about whatever.
Okay. Well, I do want to bring you on here for the Republican Party, and if you're willing to, I want to bring you on for your thoughts with the Republican Party, and I don't know if you can share thoughts that you've shared with me offline, online, or not. But okay, so let's get to this story though, because this is completely separate from what you were originally pulled on for. But parents of the Trump shooter continue with excuse me, let me restate that over. Parents of Trump shooter continue with major legal step as feds look into what they know. A report was released. The parents of Thomas Crooks have hired a high-power legal firm as the investigation continues into their son's July 13th attempt to assassinate former President Donald Trump. The firm of Quinn Logue, I believe it's either Lodge or Logue, Logue, which is based in Pittsburgh, will represent Matthew. Pardon me.
Loge. And the only reason I know
Loge?
that is there was an actor, Donald Loge, that spelled it the same way. So Loge.
Okay, thank you. Which was based in Pittsburgh, will represent Matthew Crooks and his wife, Mary, according to the Daily Mail. The firm, founded by some of Pittsburgh's top attorneys, says it specializes in criminal defense and civil suits, including wrongful death and personal injury. The Mail, citing a source, citing a supposed anonymous family member, reported that as the FBI investigates the shooting, the agency remains uncertain exactly how much the gunman's parents knew about this plan. The FBI still very much has questions about how much they knew and how he, Thomas, slipped through the net, the source repeatedly said. Prior to the shooting, the parents contacted law enforcement saying their son had not responded to their attempts to contact him. Crook's parents have made no statement after the shooting when confronted by the media, having asked to be left alone. Some Republicans have voiced concern over the pace of the investigation and lack of apparent motive in the shooting, which killed one rally goer while wounding Trump and two suspects. It has been more than a month since former President Trump near assassination, yet the FBI still has not offered Congress or the public any real insight into Crook's motivation. So here is the takeaway that I get from this that's somewhat in this story, but not. If I understand correctly, not only Crook's father is in psychology, psychologist, one of the two, I can't remember. I believe so is his mom. So they have a little bit of money. And I read from a story earlier today where a neighbor is like, hey, we're a really close-knit neighborhood. Everybody knows everybody, but hardly anybody knew who the Crooks were. So that was an anonymous statement. And I apparently pulled up the story that didn't have that, but it was from the Gateway Pundit. So this is something that I want to point out. I do not in any way, shape, or form have an issue with a family retaining legal counsel. But according to news sources, This is a top 50 law firm, not in Pittsburgh, but in the nation. To get that kind of, to retain someone like that, that is pricey. I guarantee you the retainer on that is over 10 grand. Just a retainer, to get them on retainer.
So what I've learned in my years of doing, like, working in broadcast and media and stuff, a lot of times the attorneys for high priced law firms like that, if it's a high profile case like this, they will waive the retainer. They will waive those things because they're going to, as advertising, they're going to make more money off it in the long run than they will just off of that one case. So you may see some of that going on with this as well.
I was about to say that's a possibility. They may do the retainer for $1 as opposed to $10,000.
And I'm with you. I'm not going to judge these people for, getting legal protection. That they would be foolish not to at this stage. And I also, my heart aches for them. It's got to be tough on them, even though, maybe you don't know the story about the family or the background. It's got to be hard. You want to try to have some empathy for them. At the same time, you wonder, I've heard, not that they were psychologists, but that they both worked in social work, that they both worked in social services.
Might have been social.
For the Pennsylvania. But even so, that means they're going to be fairly comfortable because that's going to be like a SEIU, State Employees International Union, or whatever it is. They're not going to be living hand to mouth. They're going to have a stable income and a secure income with their jobs. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. My biggest concern is that we are not getting information presented to us, and that tells me that it's because it doesn't fit the narrative that they always want to have with any incidents with a shooter or with guns or with anything. It's always, the redneck cowboy, blah, blah, blah. And this isn't going to fit that narrative. And so they don't want the information out there because it could affect the election. And that shows how dysfunctional the bureaucracy is across the nation.
Good point. Well, so there's a committee that was officially done by the Speaker of the House. He put together a committee, and then there's like a group of guys, just a group of congressmen that are put together their own committee, and they're like, the information, unfortunately, they don't have any subpoena power, but it's got a former Navy SEAL, it's got a former Green Beret counter sniper. Guys that you absolutely, if they're the first two guys that you'd go to, you think that you'd go to for the House and say that the Speaker of the House actually should have put in on that committee and said, hey, I want you guys to be on this, because they wanted it. They're wanted to be on it.
Perspective. Yeah, they're going to have a unique perspective that other people don't have. And I'm glad they're there. I'm glad they're doing their own. There's a lot of politics that goes into it, like with the Speaker, seniority and crap like that they have to deal with it. You wish they wouldn't have to deal with, but I'm glad they're doing their own, and I'm sure they're doing it with his blessing, not without his blessing. So that's good too.
I'm not 100% certain it is with his blessing, because they're coming out and saying, hey, we're not getting the information we need. It's not being released. Now, maybe it is. Maybe it is with his blessing, but it's not like he's come out and said, I'm glad that he's doing it.
I have a problem with them saying, hey, we're not getting the information, because that was when before he was Speaker and he was chair of a couple of different committees. That was one of the biggest banes to his existence was the stonewalling and the lack of information. So this might be their workaround, so that it's official channels. And again, I'm guessing, but it would make sense.
But the bottom line is, from the very beginning, we know that they have not been, the information is coming out so slow. And when you have slow release of information like this, it immediately makes people go to, if you've got something to hide, it's just like with one of your kids. It's like, the cookie jar is broken. I have 3 children, and all 3 of them were in the room right next to it. I know one of you is guilty, and I know that the other two know who it wasn't, but nobody's saying anything. Kind of makes me wonder if you were all involved in getting into the cookies when you're not supposed to, right? I mean, and there's a little conspiracy brewing amongst, I mean, am I wrong?
Nobody talks, everybody walks.
What that says is there's a cover-up going on.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get into cover-up on something like that, you get in conspiracy theory, and I don't blame anyone for going conspiracy theory and having those type of questions. All right. So do you mind if I reference kind of our phone call that we had and the conversation you had?
As long as you don't rat out what happened to me at the Sam's Club gas station pump, yeah, we're fine.
Done. I will not. I will keep that quiet.
Oh,
that's just between you and
we can do a whole show. We can do a whole show on that because you were part of it. You were the reason that they yelled at me. So yeah, we'll share that story one day. We'll do a whole segment on Chad at the Sam's Club gas station island.
Okay, let's be clear. Talk with Jon was not even in the same zip code with Chad. So
no, but you were on the phone with me. I was on the phone with you when it happened, and they got mad at me. They didn't think I was pumping yet. They thought I was talking to you and not pumping. They didn't realize that my car was just on empty, so it was taking a long time to pump. And so you were in fact a major player in the incident.
I'd like to think I was just an innocent bystander.
Oh no. You're in it up to your elbows.
Okay, all right. Then I've got broad shoulders. I can take the.
The rest of it. Yeah.
In fact, yeah. Don't blame it on the rain. Blame it on Talk with Jon and say it's all Talk with Jon's fault. I got broad shoulders. I can carry the load.
There we go.
All right. So yeah, Chad almost had to knock some dude out, but fortunately, a bunch of women came to the rescue of the other individual, and Chad didn't have a chance to do it.
Gosh, it was crazy.
All right. Okay, so there's a couple things that are happening. So you're on the state central committee, and we've got a couple things going on here in the state when it comes to the running of governor for the Republican office. So there are some questions. So something that just happened yesterday, apparently, the state legislature, some people from the state legislature met with the Cox campaign, and the state legislature said they're going to look into some of are going to do an audit, I think was the proper term. They're going to do an audit on the, what is it? The gathered signatures that got Spencer Cox allowed to be on the primary. Phil Lyman is trying to say, hey, we want access to the signatures. They've said you don't have the right to have the signatures. And as of yesterday, the legislature is going to look into it. It sounds like the Cox campaign, Cox and Henderson campaign are somewhat playing ball. And then on top of that, we also have Phil Lyman, who has announced that he's going to do a write-in campaign. And then I've got competing points of views within the Republican Party, and within the really conservative Republicans, there's competing points of view on that. And with the not so conservative Republicans, they have competing points of view. So I'm bringing you on to kind of go, okay, you also had a conversation with some key players. And so I want you to share from your perspective what that conversation was like. I'll let you address any of the players that might have not been involved or involved, and let's go from there.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think there are three different buckets with this. I think there is and we can talk about it. The meeting I was asked to go to Thursday, and I'll be happy to talk about that and share what happened there. And I hope people get to see this, and I hope if they can't see it now, hopefully you can share it, Jon, and people can see, and I'll share what my perspective of the meeting we had on Thursday. met along with a small group of other people with Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson, and we can kind of go over that.
Okay.
With the meeting yesterday, with the audit that's been called for and requested, I think there are two different things, and I could be wrong on this, and this is just my opinion and my observation. Others can go into deeper detail. I think the audit is good. I think the audit will let us know where there are issues and where things need to be fixed and where there are possible illegalities and where there's possible things that could be made better, because the signature gathering method is suspect and does not run efficiently. I think that's what we'll end up getting out of that. If we get an honest audit, that's what the conclusions that we'll get from that audit. I think the relief that the Lyman campaign is looking for, and the ability to see the signatures and to know whether Governor Cox got enough signatures, or due to illegal signature gathering methods that were done with the people who were paid to do the signature gathering, I think that's a different matter, and we've got to figure out how to get those signatures released as well. There's a lot of contrasting law that goes into it, and I am not an attorney, and I never even claimed to be one. I'm not. So I'm not going to try to speak to the law on it, because it's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is imaging, marketing, and branding. That's what I do. That's what I do well. And so I would encourage the governor and the lieutenant governor and anybody who involved in it, find a workaround, find a way to get the signatures released so that any questions that are out there are put to bed. Lyman has his answers that he needs. The people who support Phil Lyman have the answers they need. And if something did get you where you're not on the ballot, let's deal with it. Let's deal with it. Let's tackle it head on. I think the audit is going to help us repair a lot of things and fix the processes. I think there's a lot of problems with the processes. One thing I pointed out in the meeting that we were at yesterday with the legislative audit team and House Representative Carrie Ann Lisenby and House member Judy Weeks-Roner, was that the issues we've had with signature gathering have probably been going on for a long time, but have really been brought to bear over the last year. We had issues with Bruce Huff's campaign in the special election for CD2, and 13 people had criminal charges brought up against them. We've had issues now with the company that gathered signatures for House Rep Don Ipson, or state legislator Don Ipson. And the same company was gathering signatures for Attorney General candidate Derek Brown and for Governor Cox. So we've had issues, and they're serious issues, and they need to be addressed. And people need to quit hiding behind the law and finding ways to work within and around the law. And I'm not saying illegally, but there's always a workaround. Find the workaround and get the information released so people have a firm grasp of what happened and can feel comfortable what's going on. We don't need the nonsense. So that's what I got out of yesterday.
Okay. And then the third one is the Lyman campaign and signature gathering.
Yeah, so with that, I think they have some valid.
I guess that's a fourth one, not a third one.
Yeah, with them with signature gathering, I think they have some valid complaints, and they deserve to see the signatures, and that's my point. Find a workaround. So those going together. But I would say, trying to blame everybody for why Phil isn't on the ballot, or that like the state central committee didn't do this, or the lieutenant governor didn't do that, or the governor didn't do this. The laws are pretty clear on that stuff. You just got to read the whole statute. You have to read all of the pieces, and everything that was handled correctly. You may not like it. We need to make changes. I definitely feel we need to make changes in how we do things, but nothing was done maliciously, and nothing was done, and no one's being malicious or nefarious now. And so, people are frustrated. I get it. I've worked with some of these people for a long time on different matters, and they have had the door slammed in their face over and over and over again, and they're to the point where they are just fed up. So no matter what you say or what you do, they're not going to be satisfied, and it's not their fault. It's not. It is the fault of those who kept slamming the doors in their face. But in the meantime, you still have to figure out a way to rationally work through these issues. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at on all this. And I think there are players that work with various candidates and work with various teams that would rather see everything burned down or torn down or wiped out than actually try to come up with a reasonable solution. And unfortunately, those people have the ear of some people that I wish they wouldn't, and that it's just making things harder on all of us. But we've got to figure out how to get this fixed, because there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, and they need to be fixed immediately. But a lot of the nonsense just needs to be stopped. And and I don't mean to be so cryptic, but I don't want to get sued. So I'm going to speak in very vague terms on some, because some people are trying to weaponize the legal system, and I've lost a lot of respect for people who have tried to weaponize the legal system. And in my opinion, so that I don't get arrested, because I can have an opinion, they need to pump the brake.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the signature gathering.
Okay.
So I'm going to go from Talk with Jon's perspective. I had, and still have, but definitely up until basically the last couple of days when Spencer Cox and Dieter Henderson said, yes, we will agree to look into doing a audit. I was like, they're trying to hide the ball. They're acting like they're trying to hide the ball. The bottom line is they should be out front and say, I mean, he's the governor of the state. He's the governor of the state, and she is the lieutenant governor. And underneath the lieutenant governor has basically all the election responsibilities fall under her. And it is, in my opinion, all along with any referendum, whether she's for it or against it, she needs to be from the perspective of, hey, whatever you guys need to see the numbers and to see the true numbers, I want it revealed. And we've got to go all the way back to when Spencer Cox first won the election in 2020. Our voting machines were supposed to be kept in the state. I want to say it's for 90 days. But there was a certain period of time that they're supposed to be kept in the state. They were shipped out significantly before then to Arizona. Okay, so was it breaking the law? Was it going against whatever, is it just, a mistake, an oversight, whatever? A number of these things have happened underneath Spencer Cox, with him being the first lieutenant governor that was counting the votes, and then became the governor, and his lieutenant governor is now counting the votes. In my opinion, because it's underneath both of them, hey, if you want to be above reproach, you need to come out and say, from the very beginning, I'm going to do everything we can to be transparent. I'm going to go out of my way to make it and show transparency. Deidre Henderson, has said, with some of the counts that have been asked for, hey, we want to see this information. When different people have gone to different campaigns, have gone and asked county clerks, she's threatened the county clerks. If you give that information, we will sue you. We will go after you. We will seek legal remedy going after you individually or after the county. These are talking about the county clerks. My point is, at the very least, she's playing a political. At the very least, it puts the look of she's playing a political game. At the very least, I think probably is playing a political game. That's my personal opinion. And there's more than enough room for someone to say, well, you're trying to hide the ball. You're trying to hide the results. That is a fair statement. And we're going to get to a little bit about the signature gathering process. And I want to get to that because you were involved in a referendum that had a very high level of scrutiny that I don't know that's happening as well. So I'm going to go with Spencer Cox, and then there's a couple other things that happened with Spencer Cox. Then move forward to the convention. He said there's people out there that are trying to do away with the convention system. All those people that are out there that are trying to do away with it happen to seem to support you, Spencer Cox. 1. 2, then another thing that happens, the election happens the night of the election. Within an hour before a number of the results are in, you're declaring yourself the winner, and you're saying that Phil Lyman should call it, that it is irresponsible, that Phil Lyman's a sore loser and should be calling up. Come to find out, Phil Lyman, I believe, lost by, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 50. Spencer Cox won with like 56%. Phil Lyman,
he lost by about 9%.
Yeah, in my opinion, so 9% within the first hour. There's plenty of room for him to go, no, I want, had it been like the next day, okay, Spencer Cox, but to come out within the first hour, I mean, that's another thing that makes you look really questionable. So those are some things just on the Spencer Cox, Deidre Henderson that I put with them that goes, I think you're not being completely honest and forthright actors. So you were in a conversation with him. I'm sure some of these things were involved, and I want to say you said it was last Thursday. And apparently Holly that is the head of the Republican Republican.
That's Holly Rabani is my county chair for Tooele County. There was a meeting on Wednesday, and she attended that meeting. Okay. I attended a separate meeting on Thursday.
I wish I would have been. I have not been able to listen to what Holly had to say. I wish I would have known that she was at that meeting, a separate meeting from you, and I could have listened to her and see what she had to say. But and folks, she just happens to be on KMMU. She happens to be on Main Street Media Utah. You can go to Rumble. You can go to Rumble. You can go to Twitter, and you can go to KMMU, and you can go back and see what she reported on that happened.
They talked about it last Friday on political head trauma.
Right. So, but I want to say, okay, Chad, what was talked about in your conversation, and what did you hear, and what did you see from Spencer Cox?
When it goes to signature gathering and the governor and the lieutenant governor, my opinion, everything you said is right. They should have, they just should find a way to work around the law. And I think they use the law as a shield rather than as a sword to cut through the red tape. And they wish they would do that. I think the other person that's not getting near enough grief on this that should, and not grief, but pressure should be putting on, because while Deidre is the one who implements the laws and is the lieutenant governor is who, does stuff. The attorney general is and the AG's office plays a big role in this as well. And they could be coming out and finding ways to help the lieutenant governor and the governor be more transparent. And they're being noticeably silent in a lot of ways. And so I would like to see maybe some of the focus put there as well, not just on the lieutenant governor, but on the attorney general.
I think that's fair. Here's the question. Is the attorney general's office being quiet because they've been asked to be quiet?
I would love to know. Nobody's asked. You don't really see, you don't see anybody really sticking a mic in the AG's face and asking him about it. So I think that's an appropriate, issue to be brought up. So the meeting on Thursday that we had, it was a good meeting. It was not a love fest. It was people who have been very vocal in how they feel about Governor Cox. I said many a time, and I say it with a little bit of a gentle ribbing. I like Spencer. I don't like my governor. I think. I mean, I can.
You said that many times. You said that to me personally. So I want to.
I can sit and watch a basketball game with him and have a blast. We could talk baseball or football or pop culture and have a great time. I don't always like how he goes about stuff with his job as governor. So that's why I was invited to this meeting, because they know I'm a vocal critic. I'm going to be honest. I think the governor is concerned. I think he is scared, for lack of a better term. And people have asked me if I felt that he was sincere in how he talked to us when we had this meeting. And I said to you the other day, John.
One of those people was me.
I said, I think he's sincerely scared. And the reason he is because he made a mistake of listening to his handlers. They gave him the numbers. They went through the polling. They went through all the numbers, and they thought they had a mandate. They thought they had 70% of the Utah population would be voting for them. So he felt he could run his campaign almost anonymously through convention and through the primary and not really go out and engage with the population, because he thought he had a very comfortable cushion. He found on primary night, it was not so. He acted poorly with us at convention because of that. And really acted in a very misguided way in how he approached the state delegates. And he embarrassed himself, and he embarrassed our state. And he embarrassed the Republican Party with his actions. Now, with that said, there were those in the Lyman campaign who also embarrassed our party and embarrassed our state. And I do not appreciate some of the actions there. In my opinion, there were no winners overall at state convention in April. I think a lot of people could have acted better. But the governor I expect more out of, because he's the governor. And he is the face of our state. He is a GOP, so in a lot of ways, he's the face of our party. So I expect better out of him than what he gave us. So I hold him to a higher standard than some of the folks who I don't like how they acted during the convention. So that was brought up. That was brought up. That was the very first thing that was brought up on Thursday. He took accountability for his actions. He apologized. He admitted that while he's trying to do things a different way, he sometimes doesn't practice what he preaches. And he apologized. And we told him, you don't just need to apologize to us. You need to apologize to en masse to the state delegates and to the people that were a part of that convention. You need to come out and apologize. So we'll see if that happens. But he is concerned that we will end up with Brian King as governor if we don't coalesce as a GOP. If we don't find a way to come together. I think he's genuinely concerned about that. I'm not going to lie. I'm genuinely concerned about that as well. Contrary to what people think, it will not be gridlock. A Democratic governor will be able to hire people to put into the various bureaucratic roles in the government agencies. And once you get in there, it's almost impossible to get them out. We're not happy with the judges we have right now. The judges that he'll be able to appoint will be worse, and they'll be able to be there as long as they need to be. It is a no-win situation for our state. And we're already being accused of being a state that can become purple in 8 years by the Democrats at their convention. If we go down that road, that's just going to embolden them more. So with that said, it's up to the governor to mend the fences and fix the things. And one of those things that will start and fix that is apologizing for how he acted at convention, making sure that he did it for the office, the signatures are able to be seen, and that we know that everything is above board. He's got to do those two things. The other thing that he's got to do is, and Rob Axon, the chair of the GOP, was at the meeting, and Rob brought up, that you've got to come back and work with the Republican Party, because we really are we can help you get your agenda across, and we can convey the fact that you do have a conservative agenda for the most part. And that segued into my thoughts. I had thoughts. I put a lot of thought into this meeting. I was not going to go to this meeting if it was just a dog and a pony show, and I was the pony in the dog and pony show. So I wrote a list, and the thing is, actions speak louder than words. He can tell us all he wants to, he can say all he wants, but he's got to do actions. So I wrote out, and I have it right here. I'm going to send it to Jon later today or tomorrow so he can put it up wherever he wants to put it up, and other people can share it as well. These were action items that will rebuild the working relationship between Governor Cox and the Utah GOP. And I gave these to him. I actually physically handed these to him when I was done reading them to him. These are the things I said to him. Number one, promote legitimate conservative input. That means having regularly scheduled meetings with everyday conservative Utah voters. This will go a long way to helping them feel confident that their rights are maintained and that their concerns carry weight. Remember, people want to feel heard and validated. That was number one. Number two, do not simply go along to get along. Show more of a willingness to stand up to those who don't believe in the Utah GOP platform. This has been and is a real concern of many Utah state GOP delegates. Abortion, immigration, and education matter greatly to everyday residents of Utah. Communication is key. Please make sure you communicate to the point of annoyance with Utah GOP members, not just campaign pieces and PR releases, but regular inside baseball content. A lot of these issues could be resolved if we knew why they were having to do what they were doing, or what laws were holding them back, because then we can lobby our representatives and our senators to change the law. If the governor isn't able to do something because there's a law standing in the way, let us know that so that we can go out and be your ally. Don't try to hide it for us or cover up. Be transparent. Give us what's going on. Be out front and lead on the removal of DEI, CRT, autonomy for girls' sports, and eliminate the graphic overreach of mental health agendas being played out on our students. Commit to tearing down the bureaucracy by the executive branch. There are too many people in leadership of the various state executive agencies that are diametrically opposed to the foundational principles that set Utah apart from other states. That's got to go. That's just got to be gone. Illegal immigration. A stronger public face needs to be displayed, and action, not words, needs to occur. According to anonymous sources, we are still receiving regular flights in from out of state. These cloak and dagger transports need to cease now. We must stop incentivizing the desire to relocate to Utah for the government subsidies provided. End crony capitalism. Do not let those with the financial wherewithal to buy a seat at the table control the agenda. Let the free market be truly free. And on this one, I hit him hard on the stadiums that they're implementing and on all the different ways that he allows Gail Miller and Ryan Smith, and I said them by name, to have a seat at the table and be the straws that are stirring the drink just because they have a bigger pocketbook than the rest of us. We need to end crony capitalism now. Finally, cease the effort to centralize control under the umbrella of the state executive branch. Do not try to make various positions appointed. Let the will of the voters make the call. And then I wrapped it up with, if these action items can be committed to and implemented, the ability to truly unify Utah will occur. GOP principles have proven time and again to be the straightest pathway to prosperity for all. So that was
what was his response?
Thank you. Like, sincerely, I think he was sincere. I kind of made a little, I'm a salesman. We all know that. Anybody who knows me, and Jon, you know this. So I had to say, I said, so if you'll just sign right here, Governor, we can get this wrapped up and let's get it underway. And I handed it to him like I would hand a client a sales proposal. So he chuckled, everybody laughed, and I think everybody felt good about it. They felt like those were the things he needed to hear. I'm understanding that a lot of what I talked about was also talked about in the meeting on Wednesday. So I think he's hearing a consistent message from people. And that message is he's got to make the changes. We will welcome him back. We will work with him, but not until we see a drastic change in the way he's doing the business of the state. So it was a positive response, but who knows? Actions speak louder than words.
Okay, so what are the things that he and Deidre Henderson said to you guys? Because I've heard you relay.
They apologized. They apologized for their act at convention profusely. They apologized for being dismissed.
You say what did Deidre Henderson apologize for? Okay, so either
lost the connection for a second.
Either my computer
Are we back?
Okay, I'm not sure if it's you or me that lost connection, but we're back.
We're back.
Looks like.
She basically backstopped. She was there. She was his wingman. I mean, she didn't say a lot. There was one interesting back and forth between a good friend of mine and the lieutenant governor on some of her past actions, and there was some pushback, and that was probably the most tense moment. But overall, the governor she was his wingman, so the governor did most of the talking, which it should be that way.
She is the velvet glove for an iron fist. She is a good bulldog. She is
the bad cop to his.
That
she's the bad cop to his good cop. That I figured that out a long time ago. She's the bad cop to his good cop. Yeah, you're right. And here's the thing. I'm a little, and I actually reached out to his team on Saturday after I saw this. So there's been a lot made about the fact that his kids and Mike McHale's kids and Amy Winder Newton's kids got this scholarship to the Utah Governor's Conference thing or whatever it is down at SUU. I think it's a mountain being made out of a molehill. I know when you're tired of everything becomes a bigger deal than it is because there's a lack of trust. But I really don't think it was as big of a deal as some people have made it. But with that said, the lieutenant governor put out a tweet on X or whatever they're called now on Friday that basically made it impossible for anybody to try to defend them because she went back to the old habits of bashing people. And that's just got to end. It's just got to end. If they want to work with us, she can't be doing that, no matter how frustrated she is. And I pointed that out to him. I reached out to the people who had put together the meeting on Saturday and said, look, you got to knock this nonsense off. So at least we have a door open and we'll see what happens. We talked about SB 54 and finding out solutions for getting SB 54 gone. We'll see if they
getting SB 54 gone. What do you mean by that?
Off the book. Getting it off the books.
So going back to, you have to come out of the Republican convention in order to win.
Yeah. I think it's going to have to be done piecemeal. I think it's going to have to be done like over 2 or 3 steps. Maybe not, but that's just my gut. But
okay, so how did he receive that?
Very positive. Very positive.
Really? In what way? In what way?
In discussing the solution.
Because I'm not saying I don't believe you. I don't believe him, and here's the reason why. He would not be on the ballot if SB 54 wasn't there.
Well, here's the thing, and this is what we pointed out to him. So all this goes back to, if we really want to go back, and when I started my conversation with him, his issues with the base of the Republican Party in Utah began in 2021. Okay? It began when we didn't elect Stuart Pay as the chairman of the Republican Party. All right? Okay. He had a hand-picked slate that he wanted as his people in control of the Republican Party. We said no. And we voted in a completely different group of people than the people he had chosen. He took his ball and he went home. And in the last 3 years, he has not engaged in any meaningful way with the members of the Republican Party. He got his friends who have the money to donate to give us the financial wherewithal to make the Republican Party work successfully. He got them to not give their money to the party, but to give it to individual candidates instead. So a lot of the problems come from the fact that 3 years ago, he walked away from the party. So he has to walk back. That's why I gave him this list of stuff that he needs to do to rehabilitate himself. Because a lot of it is what his walking away. So if he were to walk back in and we were to fix things and he were to actually work with the party, we may not be having some of the issues we're having with him right now. he may have not said some of the stuff he said in previous moments in the past, because I think he would have been listening to a broader base and understanding. Right now, I think in some moments, he is the most conservative person in the room of the people who he's talking to. And so he thinks he's much more conservative than he is. And that's because of his having walked away from the Republican Party. So if he were to come back and fix these things, he might make it through convention caucus. But he's got a lot of work to do. Dude, he's got a Herculean effort in front of him. And it's going to take words.
I don't see how it happens. I do not see how that happens. Is it possible?
Honestly, John, I hope it happens. I want it to happen because it will make our state stronger. And if we do it, it's like Rob Axon said, if he were to come around and do some of the stuff we're talking about, we would easily be an 80% Republican state and be we would be talked about in ways that Texas and Tennessee and Florida are talked about nationally.
We absolutely should be.
And we're not because of what's going on. So if he were to pivot and come back and the door's open, I said to him, you've got to come back. We've got to be willing to open the door and let you in. So we're going to have our little ounce of humility as well. We've got to be willing to let him back in, but he's got to do the long haul work to get back to the door. And right now, everybody you talk to doesn't think he can do it. I'm hoping he's stubborn enough that he'll want to prove him wrong. I hope. We'll see what happens.
Okay. He might be politically enough. He might be political enough. That I could see. All right.
So we talked about schools. We talked about education. We had Cole Kelly, who everybody who lives down in that area needs to vote for state school board. Do not vote for the write-in candidate. Cole Kelly was in the meeting, and he brought us some great points to the governor about how we need to repair some of the damage that's been done by giving more of a voice than necessary to UEA. We had some good conversations about abortion, SB 54. It was more of a working session than it was a gripe session. We talked about what you've got to do and how you can make these things happen. And so we'll see if he actually engages with these people like he's committed to.
Okay, so here's my question to you. Were you the most conservative person in the room?
No, probably not.
Okay.
A couple more, probably slightly more conservative. I mean, not much, but slightly more. I don't think Aaron Bullen was in the room. I think Aaron is slightly more conservative than I am. Gunnar Thorson. I know he gets a lot of grief right now, and everybody's wanting to call him this, that, and the other thing. Gunnar is a good man and doesn't deserve the BS he's getting right now. And I'm about ready to throw hands with the people that are mistreating Gunnar, because Gunnar is a good conservative and a strong conservative. And he was there. Corinne Craven Johnson, who had been the lieutenant governor pick for Carson Jorgensen, was there. So no, there was some good, I was not the most conservative person in the room, but there were a lot of good conservatives in there, and there was maybe one person who I would consider a Cox apologist, and he was pretty quiet the whole night.
Okay. Well, let's hit the one of the other topics that we were talking about. Here's one of my problems with the way it looks from the outside. When you did the signature gathering for the state flag referendum, right? It seemed like that they were willing to throw out signatures and sometimes whole books over the smallest of issue.
Oh yeah, that was ridiculous, and that was an overreach of power. Yeah, no, you're dead on. They're not treating the signatures gathered for candidates in the same way, and that's got to be repaired. And that was one of the things brought up in that audit meeting yesterday that the legislature needs to work on. They need to fix that. And yeah, you're dead on that. And that again goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning with avoiding the appearance of evil. It makes you look crooked. So yeah, there were some real issues with that. Yes.
So that's one thing that I wanted to point out right away is it seems like so if Spencer Cox comes in by the skim of his teeth, if he comes in by a couple hundred signatures and the audit finds that it's within it's a couple hundred signatures that gets him in, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to cry foul because of that same. It seems to be going every way that Spencer Cox wants. Spencer Cox was for the flag. Everything that Spencer Cox wants, he seems to be getting along those lines, and that's where. And I've talked to a number of people who are conservative, yet not necessarily. They're not the guys that hey, it's time to burn the bridges. I am talking to the other people that are willing to burn the bridges, and they're and they're saying the exact same thing. So very common sense people, more common sense than Talk with Jon, and people are saying the same things that the people that are ready to burn down the house because they feel like nobody's ever listened to them, and things don't seem to be done fairly.
Oh, I've
got both of those people saying the exact, and the thing is, they're saying the exact same thing. Go ahead.
And it all goes back to actions speak louder than words. He's got himself in this mess with his actions over the last 3 years. He's got to fix it. He's got to fix it. We can't fix it for him. And so does he have the humility? Does he have the pragmatism? Does he have the political wherewithal to acknowledge that he has to make these corrections? Or is he going to let his friends with all the money buy him out of it? And the concern is he's going to let his friends buy him out of it. And so we'll see. And I am right now, I'll make it clear. I'm none of the above. I'm the movie Brewster's Millions from the 1980s.
I remember that.
I am none of the above. I'm sorry. I will not vote for King. I can't in good conscience vote for Phil Lyman, and the people who know me know why. And I can't vote for Spencer Cox, and the people who know me know why. My trust is gone right now with any. I am. John McCain, Senator John McCain called himself a maverick. Dude, he's got nothing on me. I feel like I get it from everybody. I'm fatigued by all of it. We've got to be working smarter, not harder, and we're doing damage. But the majority of the damage has been done by Cox and those in that camp who have spent the money and the time and the political capital to really take control. And it's not a real control. They don't have as much control as they think they do, and so they need to come around. They do. They need to come around and come back to us. And mass mail-out voting, yeah, and that's one thing I brought up in there, and we did bring up. We have got to get rid of universal mail-in balloting. That's got to go. That's got to go. And some announcer's brother has the audacity to try to call me while we're talking. Some people's brothers.
Well, I'm not an announcer. I am a talk show host.
Okay. I guess, yeah. They're all the same to me. But no, to wrap it up, I know we've only got a couple minutes left. Jon, yeah, I'm not.
Well, okay, so I want to hit. I do really want to quickly hit the Phil Lyman write-in campaign. I know you said you're not for it. Why not? Because so here are the numbers. I looked up. So Lowell Nelson and I were chatting about this on my show earlier today. The numbers of 2020, the election in 2020, it was like 60.7% or something like that of the people in Utah voted for. Yeah, it was a little over 60%, and it wasn't like 61%. A little over 60% voted for Cox, and like almost 30.8% voted for the Democrats. So that's a 30% difference. Phil Lyman would have to take somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% to give the Democrat governor any, the Democrat in.
I think
running.
I think the Democrats are more motivated, and this is one thing that was discussed in the meeting we had on Thursday. I think the governor and his people are looking at the numbers. I think the Democrats are highly motivated this year to go out and vote. I think you could see it being 41 to 42, even 43% of for King. That means Lyman only has to get somewhere between 7 and 10%. And even 6%. Most write-in campaigns get about 6 to 7%. So there is a possibility. It's a stretch, but it could happen. It could happen. I think we're going to see different voting numbers this year than we saw in 2020. Why I won't vote for? Why I won't vote for?
I think a significant. Let me say this. Yeah. I think a significant percentage, somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 8%, that voted were Democrats voting for Spencer Cox.
Maybe we'll see what happens. Good leaders surround themselves with good people. I do not feel that Phil has always surrounded himself with the best people, and so that I can't in good conscience vote. So I'm none of the above. That's really what it comes down to for me. I think Phil's a very smart man, a very good man, a very principled man. I don't think he always makes good choices with who he surrounds himself with. And so if he does that in his campaign, who's he going to surround himself with up at the Capitol? I can't. That's just where I'm at. So I'm none of the above. Right now, I am none of the above. I'll leave it blank.
Okay. Who are you giving yourself the ability to? Are you at the point where someone can win your way one way or another?
It would take a lot for Cox. It would take if there was a flip over in the and Cox were all of a sudden off the ballot and Lyman were on, it would take a lot of heavy lifting. I will not vote for King ever. But I would be none of the above. That would just be my personal choice. It would take a lot. It's going to take a lot. I'm very jaded right now.
Okay. Well, we're now at 6:01. So, Chad, I want to say thanks for your time. Appreciate you being here today. Thank you for joining me on Talk with Jon.
We have
on KMMU.
You have to commit to letting people know about the island at Sam's Club the next time we talk. We'll share that story.
We'll share that story. Okay. You remind me. I promise we'll talk about it.
Okay. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for having me on, Jon.
All right, folks. This has been Talk with Jon. I've had Chad Saunders here with me. I appreciate him being here tonight. So, folks, have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next Tuesday, roughly at 4 o'clock. There's a possibility that one may not happen because that's right after Labor Day, and Jon still might be on vacation. We will see. So, until we see you next time, definitely within 2 weeks, you'll see me. So this is Talk with Jon. Have a great evening. Talk to you soon, folks. Take care. Thank you very much. And thanks for joining us on KMMU.